Hello, it's Karen Berniston here with my monthly designer challenge video. The theme this month is song lyrics, and I chose Do You Want to Build a Snowman from the movie Frozen. And what I wanted to achieve here was a window card where the title would be kind of like etched into the glass and you would see the pieces and parts of the snowman, then open it and that full snowman is revealed. This is going to be a great generic technique, so you could copy this card into any theme. The main pop-up is the Postage Pop-up, and then our new greeting label set includes some squares and a rectangle that will fit that Postage Pop-up to give it an extra layer. Almost everything for the snowman came from the Snowman die set, except for I did like the little fringy edged scarf in the Snowman pop-up, so I grabbed that, and then I used the stitched edge out of Nature Edges for all of the snowbanks. For the window and the greetings, a combination of our squares crosshatch, mini alphabet and numbers, and then our winter hugs clear stamps. Okay, let's get started. So the two largest squares out of the squares crosshatch set, just nested those together and then cut two white frames to go around the window opening on the inside of the card and the front of the card. I'm going to make a 5x7 card. So I started with a piece of cardstock, 10 inches wide by 7 inches tall, scored in the middle for folding. Now I ended up using kind of a medium weight cardstock, and on reflection I wish I would have used lightweight because of the way I'm going to have to roll this through my machine to cut the window. So if you've got a bigger machine, use any weight cardstock. If you have a 6-inch machine, use lightweight cardstock. I'll need 4 pieces of pattern paper, each of them 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. These happen just to be older designs from my stash. Now, as far as adding these pattern papers to the card, at this point, I only want to add paper to the front of the card and then the back of that same panel, so inside the card on the left side. And again, this is only because I'm using my 6-inch machine on a 7-inch card, so I've got to hold those 2 papers back. If you had a bigger machine, you could just put all your paper on. For cutting the window, I want the smaller of the 2 squares that I used for the frames. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of centering that on the front of the card widthwise. And then at the top, I'm getting, pretty close to the top. I can take my frame and take a look-see and see if I like that location. I'm trying to leave myself some space at the bottom of the card for that snowman inside. Okay, if I had a wider machine, I would open my card up and run it through sideways so that I was only cutting through the front of the card. Since I have my smaller machine, I'm going to have to run it through with the card closed. And that's going to be difficult. And it was difficult. And if I'd used lighter weight cardstock, it would have been easier. But I did get it through. All right, now here's why I held back the pattern paper. Because the process is going to push that die down into the back panel of my card. Or if the cardstock is lightweight enough, it might actually cut the square all the way through the card. Either of those things is fine because the pattern paper will repair it. So once you put your pattern paper on the inside of the card, if you've got a square missing, in other words, if your square fell out of your card, once you get the pattern paper on, well, then just flip your card, glue that square right down into the opening again, and then back the card with another piece of pattern paper. And no one's ever going to know that there is either an etched square or a cut square beneath those pattern papers. There is a full assembly video on the Postage Pop-up, but I am going to show the assembly in this video as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the box die and I'm going to find all the folds in it. They are all mountain folds, but I will often find that it's easiest to put my thumbnail into the fold and kind of break it as a valley fold towards myself and then reverse it. And in this case, I kind of got a little bit off the fold, so let me repair that one. And again, there are 4, well, I guess if you count the 2 feet, that's a 5th fold, but basically 4 locations where there are folds that will create this little box. And I just used that same kind of like medium weight white cardstock. I could have been done out of lightweight. Medium is probably pretty good for this. I am going to hit it with a bone folder because I want those folds to be crisp and I want them to fold and unfold really easily. And notice down here where the feet folds are, they're not even with that cutout. They're a little bit lower than that cutout. Okay, so here's a little tip that's not in the assembly video. You see how you have very little wiggle room on the pull tab? Here's a little tip, especially if you're not going to see this mechanism because it's going to be up underneath your postage frame. Feel free to take your scissors and just make that opening a little bit wider and a little bit taller. And what it'll do is it'll just give you a little bit more wiggle room on the assembly. If you've ever put the Postage Pop-up together and had it creak, like make like a really significant creak, it's probably from the sides of your pull arm being a little bit off and hitting that opening. And so you can make that opening a little bit bigger. It won't hurt anything. Now on the pull arm, there's just one fold and it's next to the tapered tab. And again, it folds to the back. All right, now the other end is going to go through this slot right here. And you can actually just wiggle it in. So you do not have to fold the sides of it down. I was not really sure why I was struggling so much with it right here, but then I realized that the piece that was supposed to die cut was still stuck in there. So once I got that out, it was really easy to wiggle those tabs in. So just wiggle the tabs in from inside the box until the tabs are in. That'll lock it together. When I teach with this die, I like to refer to it now as the turtle. And if you think about that tapered tab out at the end being the head of the turtle, that's what gets glued down first. So I flip the turtle onto its back and I pull out that tapered tab and I put glue behind it, and then I just glue it where it butts up to the fold of the card. Okay, so right here on the tapered tab is going to get a strong adhesive. I definitely like my LINECO neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle. Then I'm going to lift this side of the card so that I don't pass the fold, and I'm going to butt the end of that tapered tab right up to the fold of the card. Now at this point, it wouldn't really matter where it is vertically as long as it's somewhere within the window. I just kind of chose to center it. Okay, now I need to find the flat position. At the front of the turtle, it's just the feet. So the feet fold forward. Then on the back end, it's two panels that fold forward. So here's the flat position for that turtle. And you can see all the wiggle room you have in it. So it's going to be up to you to kind of try and keep that straight as you attach it to the other side. So I'm just looking here. I actually just have my grid. So I just chose a grid line to try and kind of keep it straight. And what I want to do is I want to put adhesive on those 2 feet and that back tapered tab. So 3 spots get the adhesive. I keep everything nice and flat, and I close the card against the exposed adhesive. Now, since this is a window card, I actually can just flip the whole piece over and I can see exactly what I'm doing because it's right down in the window. And then I can just make sure that those 3 locations are set up against the back card before I open it. I can even do something like put my bone folder in there and put some pressure against those tabs. So definitely worth the patience to make sure that those tabs are set up before you open the card, and then you should see the box pop all the way up. All right, and then I will just add my window frame to the inside of the card. Okay, these are not glued down yet. I have the postal frame, and then I have the pieces that come in the postage pop-up for layering into each of those postage stamps. And then I cut those same pieces out of white. And what I'm going to do with those is use that Nature Edges die to cut across them and make the snow hills. Now to give a little contrast, I'm going to use the stitched squares and rectangle out of our new greeting labels set because those are sized to perfectly fit behind those pieces in the postage pop-up to give that extra layer, and it has that decorative stitch line. Now to create my scene, I'm going to use pieces out of the Snowman set. So that's the hat, the stick arms, the carrot, the hat band. Then from the Snowman pop-up, I'm using the scarf and then the die that will cut all the tiny circles for his eyes, mouth, and buttons. And then from there, it's just a matter of creating my 4 little scenes and gluing everything down. And I wanted to complete my postal collage before adding the window pane to the front of the card, because right now I have this great opportunity, which is I can close up the card and I can just put the postal scene right down through the opening and onto the top of the pop-up box in the flat position. That way I can get it perfectly centered in that window. So the adhesive would go on the top of the box, so the big square that's the top of the box. And then keeping everything nice and flat, I'm just going to take my postal scene right down through that window, making sure that it's perfectly centered and attached to the top of the box. Okay, let's give it a test and see how well it pops up. As the card opens, it's going to lift up that postal frame. A 4-inch square of a lightweight transparency is perfect for the window pane. And then because a transparency really loves a dry adhesive, I went ahead and went with my red liner tacky tape for the back of the frame on the front of the card. So I'm just going to peel up that tape liner and get my window pane down into that tape. The letters come from our mini alphabet and numbers set, and what I did is I added double-sided adhesive score tape to the back of my lightweight transparency before die cutting. So now that's going to do 2 things. The letters themselves are going to be stickers, and because of the addition of the tape, it's going to give that frosted look, so it's not going to be perfectly clear. I found my tweezers to be very helpful in placing the letters, and I also found that having my transparency over my cutting mat that had the grid was also very helpful. Then for attaching this to the front of the card, I went back to my red liner tacky tape because of the transparency, but then I also added a thin layer of glue, and that was going to give me a chance to reposition this a little bit and get it perfectly lined up with the opening. I ended up just really loving this effect of those kind of frosted letters on the glass. And if you think about it, you could do like snowflakes or images or pattern plate or something on the glass. I thought it would be cool to see all those pieces and parts turn into an actual snowman, so I assembled one using those same pieces out of the Snowman and the Snowman pop-up set. Created some long stitched hills using the nature edges, put together those squares and postage frame, and then stamped it with our Winter Hugs clear stamp set. The snowflakes are in the Snowman set. And then one last little nod to the song lyrics. I went ahead and made the transparent letters for OK Bye, and then attached those to the large fishtail banner out of the greeting label set, and then glued that to the back of the card. My finished card measures 5 by 7, so that will mail in an A7 envelope. And I really just think this technique has a lot of possibilities. For one, you don't have to frost the glass. You could just leave it as a clear window pane, and it's still a really cool card that you can see through the window to see what's on the pop-up, and then when you open it, it pops up into the air. But then also be thinking about other things that you could use to frost the glass. Like I said, could it be birthday streamers, and then you've made like a little birthday scene on the Postage Pop-up? Definitely explore the possibilities. If you check the description box below this YouTube video, you will find some valuable information, including supply links for the supplies that I used on this card, and a link to the blog post. And on the blog post, you will find photographs of my card, as well as links to all of the wonderful song lyric inspiration by our very talented design team. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can purchase these dies, as well as find links to our other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.